How we doing? Welcome to another Iron Advocate show here on YouTube. Really blessed to be joined by a dear friend of mine, incredibly talented individual today, Michael Caudo, who is an author. He is a creator. He's also a lawyer. He is the author of two of the best crime thriller books that I have ever read: Return of the Prodigal, Revenge of the Prodigal. They are sprinkled with some Philadelphia, which as a Philly boy I love, and they are filled with unbelievable creative and passionate and artistic content. Mike, thanks for jumping on with us. How are you?
Hey, Bob. I'm pretty good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Really been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too, man. It's always great to have an opportunity to talk to you, and I have been telling Mabs here that he's got to read these books, so they're next up for him. Return of the Prodigal, Revenge of the Prodigal. They're amazing, and they're just incredible works of creative art that really speak to who you are, what you're all about, the depth of the characters, the exploration of what our roots and origins mean, our relationship to our parents, and particularly in this book, our fathers, the culture with which we grow up with, and that while we may sometimes physically leave, that it remains a part of who we are, and the textured relationships between all of the characters in this book are they're magical. So thanks for sharing with all of us out here your heart and soul and passion. And I'll just jump off by asking you to just talk about where those books come from. Like
Well,
where did they come from, man?
it's a good question. I wonder the same question myself sometimes. But hey, look, thank you for that thoughtful intro. Uh, Obviously, you and I have a long history, and you've been there from the beginning. So, but let me answer your question. Where do the books come from? So, uh, you can live a life and be, at least in my case, and throughout life, be a creative person and have a story to tell, and be writing that story for the bulk of your life. The only problem is it's all internal, and you're telling it to yourself. And um, where the rubber meets the road is, well, where the pen meets the paper. And for me, it just took longer than it should have, to commit to sitting down and getting these stories out there. Uh, Part of it is the same thing that holds us all back in life. Sometimes we get tied up with the mundane day to day. We'll get into that later with the Walt Whitman quote. Um, but part of it is also, frankly, and I've talked about this. It's no secret. Fear. It's just something that's familiar to every writer, to every creator. This reluctance to go deep and really uh, expose yourself and tell your story to strangers who uh, you start to think will judge you, will think you less than. Uh, Perhaps you have a fear. Well, I'm not a real writer, or people uh, will make fun of this. Listen, these are embarrassing and uncomfortable things for me to say. Uh, but writing the books and getting that stuff out of the way just did so much for me personally, and then getting feedback from people. I mean, somebody like you, of course, who knows me well and cares for me, but whose opinion I really respect. It certainly means something. Getting feedback from people that I don't know and didn't know me until they read the books just is really all the affirmation that you require to keep going. So it's a story that was, potentially dying inside of me, um, until something made me commit to sit down and at least get a draft down on on paper, and that's the key. You can't edit what doesn't exist. So as ugly as that first draft might be, And I would say this to people, potential writers or any creator or anybody looking to accomplish anything in life is, perfection is the enemy. Get that draft down. We could always whittle away at it. We could always trim away, what's less than excellent.
There's
I
yeah, there's so much to unpack in that answer. I want to start with this. You said that perhaps the story and these characters were dying inside of you. My query is that true, or was a part of you dying because you hadn't let them out?
Yeah. Well, look, we're all in danger. We all have an expiration date, right? And I guess part of it is getting older and and seeing the time allotted to you potentially ticking away, potentially your cognitive abilities or your your skills. I hope it's not the case in my life, but I have seen people who have lost the ability to do what it was that uh, would have or should have been their passion, and that's not. I didn't want to be that person. Uh, so yeah, a little of both.
Yeah.
That that poet, that artist, that innocent person inside of you that started out in innocence, with glee and joy, and is who you can allow to wither away. Uh, you can allow this world to do that to you if you choose. Um, I hope that I've made a significant move in the other direction, and I struggle every day. I struggle every day with that balance between what I need to do to quote unquote sustain life and what I wish to do to make that life worthwhile.
Thanks for sharing so vulnerably, Mike. And what you just said in a couple minutes will take us to this Walt Whitman quote that we knock around a lot. Before we get there, I want to also touch on and call out a couple of things that were in your passionate and thoughtful responses there. One is, you said, you got the book out maybe a little later than you should have, and I would say to everybody out there, we all have creative stuff inside of us. It comes out, when it's supposed to, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to query you. Would these characters have been as rich? Would you have been as vulnerable? There's so much of you in the book, even though it's not blatant in any way. There's so much you in the book,
Yeah,
and so if you had tried to, let's just say, force it, would it have been as textured? Would you have been as vulnerable and authentic? And so, can you reflect? For those out there, sure, we can always, hindsight's 2020, right? And hindsight is different than regret, right? Regret would be happens in real time. Would be if you never got the book or the characters out, right?
yeah,
Hindsight's 2020. So can you maybe reflect for yourself here
yeah,
with a little kindness and love whether these books would have been what they are had you tried to get them out sooner, and for folks out there who maybe woulda, coulda, shoulda, or now it's too late, can you talk to them as well?
yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of answered the question, but thank you. You focused me in, and
This
you
is what we
know that
do, right? This is what
yeah, and you know that I agree. So, to your point, yes, of course, it would not have been as nuanced or as textured, or I just would not have had the story that I had to tell. Perhaps if life was such that I forced it earlier on. So yeah, it happened when it needed to happen, and I make peace with that. I am not conflicted whatsoever. And to get a little more granular with that, uh, and speaking about being vulnerable and going back to things in your past that perhaps are uncomfortable or embarrassing. In my case, unfortunately, that's where the good stories are. So I'm forced to row that boat ceaselessly into the current, born into the past, which is the last line of The Great Gatsby. Oh, I may have mangled it a little bit, but I used to
You
think
were
about
close, I
that
think.
too.
That's
I used to say, "Hey, am I rowing into the past, or is it the current that's pushing me there, and I'm rowing in the other
the
direction?"
the answer is yes. Both, all
um,
of it.
so yeah, that's definitely the case. I have, I've embraced, loved my fate. So that is I don't have a choice anyway. I can't. I haven't finished that time machine yet. So
Yeah.
I'm writing in the present, and that's where the stories need to come from. So it's a fun exercise. It's nice, it's nice to go back and resolve some of these things fictionally. It's a beautiful thing. Look, all work, potentially fiction, is somewhat autobiographical, but I get the luxury of inventing characters and being able to absolve myself uh, of some of these things. And as you know, Bob, I mean, these characters, they're composites. There's no one for
Yeah.
one. There's no real people in them, but some of them are a mix of more than one. Some of them are a
Yeah.
little bit of me. Uh, I confided in that some time back. That yeah, sure, there's little pieces of characters that you have kinship with, but in my case, it turned out to be that they're probably the characters you don't you don't first think of. The protagonist in these stories is Nick DeNobili, and a lot of people would like to think that I have some kinship there, and I'm sure I do. But Nick, and this isn't a spoiler because it's right at the beginning of Return of the Prodigal and throughout. His father is long since deceased throughout all these books, so he's a figure that looms large, but he's never alive during these novels, of which I'm on the third, by the way. Uh, and oddly enough, I found myself, frankly, identifying with that deceased character, and seeing myself as the father who's no longer here, and a son going forward without me. So, I mean, if you really want to get down to it, that's probably who I relate to the most.
It's while none of them may be real people, there are real people in all of the characters, Mike. That's what makes the book so wonderful. And many of the characters may have multiple people in them, but there's real life in every one of the characters. That's the way that's the way that I see it. And
Yeah.
while you may not be any one, you're inside of all of them, and others who have touched you or crossed your path in one way or another find their way in, because that's who we are, and that's our story. And you have found a way to entertain, and all the while, do self exploration and invite those of us that are reading to do self exploration. And isn't that the greatest gift of literature of any kind, Mike? Is to invite the author themselves and then the reader to do self exploration.
Yeah, I mean, empathy is the goal, or whether you're acknowledging it or not, of all fiction. I mean, I can read something now that was written hundreds of years ago and resonates and can bring me to tears for an individual that lived on another continent in another time. What could be more powerful than that in terms of empathy and stepping into the shoes of another person, all from some paper and ink? It's amazing, and I just hope that more young people continue to embrace uh, uh, reading of all types, especially the novel and literature. Um, and I think that empathy is, perhaps sorely lacking in some areas today. I'm not going to pretend that it would solve all of our problems, but I would invite young people to take a chance with literature, with novels, whatever you like. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a classic, although the classics are wonderful. But any young people out there listening, take a shot, pick up a book. pick up, pick up even if it's a movie that you saw and you really liked and it was based on a novel. Pick it up. It could change your life.
And I think, Mike, that you used the term presence a couple of minutes ago, that reading makes us present. It brings us inside of something that focuses and harnesses our presence. And my own journey, right? I asked you, challenged you on, did you write the book? Should you have written it sooner? Did you write it at the right time? My path, which has enormous transformation in so many ways. And from a professional standpoint, I could sit around and think that I had learned the lessons necessary from the law prior to when I actually left the law. But I truly believe that it's the journey that's the power, and when the time was right, the time was right. And it's because it's not two-dimensional, and it's not about what you may have learned. It's about where you are in the journey that allows you to embrace moving toward what life is all about, and what may truly define you, and what you want to be defined by. And so I want to ask you, and I'm gonna ask. We'll pop up this Whitman quote that we can knock around. At what point did you, or have you yet, begun to identify yourself as an author, writer, creator, as opposed to, when I met you, clearly you would have identified professionally as a lawyer.
Right.
If I asked Mike Caudo today, who are you? What are you? What would your answer to that be? And this will lead us toward this quote that we knock around all the time, that great Whitman quote about what life is really all about. So yeah, what do you define yourself as now?
Yeah, you phrased that well, and I'll flip it on you a little bit. I don't think it has to be, at least at this point in my life, one or the other. I could be both. Where am I moving? How do I want to be remembered? As an author, 1,000%. And there's a reason for that. Law is a noble profession, and I dare to say, I've done a little modicum of good throughout my career. But I also feel that I've touched people in a very deep and meaningful way through writing, and I'm a big proponent of the notion that it's one person at a time, one reader at a time. You really only have to affect one person in your life to really make a difference. And there's a quote. I hope I get it right. It's by Oscar Schindler. The movie Schindler's List, and it's something to the effect that whoever saves one life saves the world entire. Okay, so am I saving lives by writing fictional novels? No, but I like to think that I've touched someone, maybe had someone rethink something, maybe have someone pursue their passion uh, because of something that they read that came from me. So my metamorphosis, my evolution is always towards the literary life, and the good thing is I've been able to incorporate that into my law practice to an extent, and the people I serve see me a little bit differently, and dare I say, in a better or more expansive light as a more thoughtful advocate. Uh,
Without question, the art of advocacy, no matter where you do it, whether it's in the law, outside the law, you're advocating all the time. You're advocating through your books for people to be their most authentic self. The most powerful advocacy we do is from a place of authenticity, and so certainly you're more powerful. The Whitman quote, Mabs, if you pop that back up, I want folks to really look at this. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. So medicine, law, business, engineering, This is what you were touching on, Mike. These are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. And, part of what I heard you say is you can have, to a certain extent, all of this together. But what you want to be remembered by and what you want to define you is the work that you do as an author. And so how do we strike this balance, Mike? And how are you striking this in real time? Because when I look at this quote, I'm like, this is Mike Caudo's journey, right? This is your journey. So how are you striking this balance?
Through small acts of rebellion, through daily acts of theft, pulling off little heists against time and the constraints that pull at all of this. These little victories, these little pieces of poetry that we snatch back from the jaws of life that could grind us up on the daily. So you're never there. You never reach nirvana. But if every day you're pulling off at least one or two little acts of rebellion and stealing back some poetry and some beauty for yourself. And again, Whitman, when he refers to poetry, nothing wrong with poetry by itself, but poetry meaning all those beautiful things in life that are worthwhile: beauty, romance, love. Obviously, these are the things that are most important. These are the things we'll be remembered by. The people that we leave behind will remember how we made them feel. I had to read this quote a number of times. I'd read it long ago, and it means something different to me now. And that's how, I think that's a mark of good writing.
I think for sure. And it's interesting always when you see, and try to really parse these quotes that come from, a time gone by, right? When the world may have appeared to be different, but when you read them, you also realize that the struggle of humanity is the same today, right? As it was when the quote was written by Whitman, and many quotes that come before Whitman. One of the things that's always so powerful for me is saying, wow, like, before the gadgets and the tech and the electricity and all of it, that the struggle of humanity was the same as it is today while you and I are talking.
There's nothing new under the sun, and we're all living in the Odyssey. This is the eternal story that we all identify with, the hero's journey, trying to get back home, if home still exists. These are ancient stories that still resonate. It's the same story told over and over again. When the movie The Warriors, when they're trying to get back to Coney Island, that's you're watching the Odyssey,
right?
And that's why that movie has stood up over time. And I love it, by the way, and a great. I wish I could remember the name of the writer. Great screenwriter. I think his name is Yule.
And you mentioned. I didn't mean to interrupt. You mentioned the hero's journey. Anybody who wants to take a peek at Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, itself,
Please.
And the material surrounding it. I invite that of all folks. It's incredibly powerful. I think some of what I glean from Whitman and what we're talking about in my own journey is that our culture and society has definitely pushed folks toward the idea that resolving the question of what we do, whether it be medicine, law, business, engineering, plumbing, carpentry, teaching, or any other profession, has gotten a little cart before the horse from what are we truly passionate about. And one of the things that I share all the time, and particularly with my boys, is the world needs and requires and desires experts in everything. And so I encourage folks to really identify what your passions are, right? And I know you well enough to know, and I've asked you before, when did you know it was writing? And you can weigh in on this, that it goes back to your young years, your formative years in school, that you knew that writing was where it's at for you, and your journey is taking you to that now. And I think that part of what's baked into that Whitman quote is a warning that if we look externally too much, that while we may find our way into noble things, we may find our way away from what truly defines us and what in our soul we know we're passionate about. And within that, of course, is, people, relationships, and all those things. But when we are fully expressed ourselves, then that we then attract both the people, and we're able to build the kind of relationships that are what the Whitman quote is about. So can you reflect a little bit for yourself on whether I got some of that right? That, I said hindsight's 20/20, but we also learn a lot from the past. And do we have a society and culture that makes it hard for people to take ownership at a young age of, okay, what is it that really drives me versus, what do I have to do to find my way in the world, which oftentimes takes us away from who we are?
Okay. I'm going to go somewhere different than where I thought I was going to go when you first started this question. So thinking of a young person who's embarking on their life and maybe is thinking to themselves, well, I got to figure it out. I have to find out exactly what I'm going to major in and what I'm going to do until I'm 65 years old. And I stress to people in that, young people in that situation, that the discovery of that is part of it is the beauty, and it's not unlike the writing of a novel in that, and I have another quote. I'm full of quotes today. That writing a novel is a lot like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole journey that way. So you don't have to have the answer, and that discovery. And there is a term of art known as discovery writing, and it refers to not having a slavish outline of. It's good to have an outline, but not being a slave to your outline. And I'd like to, dare I, project that onto a young life, that it's nice to have a rough outline, but you don't need to be a slave to it. Those little reversals, those forks in a road, even those U-turns, those backtracks, that's where the beauty lies. And at least for me in writing a novel, I find myself going off into a place that I had never expected to go with a character that I hadn't anticipated meeting, and that's where the magic is. And I would suggest to young people grappling with that is that's where the magic is. So have fun.
I always, so I say, and I believe, didn't see it and couldn't own it myself for a long time, that we are exactly where we're supposed to be, and that we have everything we need, right? We have everything. Go ahead.
Good. There's times where that sounds trite, but it turns out to be true. Well, you and I talked about this, and also you don't have much of a choice sometimes. So you best embrace what you got in front of you. And yeah, I do. I'm a believer in that you have everything you need, and it's a tenet of stoicism to amor fati, to embrace love the fate that's in front of you. Little difficult for people to stomach who are going through some really tough times. So, with all deference to those, who are out there suffering, we don't mean to sound trite about it, but yet it still is true that you are where you need to be.
Yeah, I mean, yes, very good point that with compassion toward, toward folks that, are struggling in the moment, that this also connects to that, deep belief that, resilience is a human superpower, and that in the present moment, the deep belief that the things we're talking about, you have what you need and you will be okay, and offering ourselves kindness to not be okay, right? It's okay to not be okay. These are all things that can sound trite, but they are the things that when you come back to a present moment, steady us, right? And give us or invite us to take that next step or that next breath. And ultimately, when you do it and you rinse, repeat it, right? And along your path, plenty of really difficult times about whether to, even put pen to paper, like you said. And, plenty of personal struggles along the way. And all of them find their way, into the soul of, Return and Revenge of the Prodigal. And it may sound trite, but it is actually true.
Well,
It is actually
and just
true.
to bring it into focus and make it, real world, real life for me. Yeah, I'm failing every day a little bit. I fail as a writer every day. There's something that I'm not doing as well as I want to. There's a slide back. Things pull me away. So none of this that you or I are saying, should be construed as meaning, once you adopt this mindset, everything is just going to be smooth for you. That's not the case. But if you remind yourself of it every day, and you said something the other day, you're getting it. Okay, you want to get in the gym. You got in the gym. You were in there for 20 minutes instead of 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, it was a step in the right direction. And with writing, a thriller novel is roughly 80-90,000 words. It's I think something like uh, 200 words a day. You'll have to check my math. Um, it's a little short, but about 200, 250 words a day, and at the end of a year, you'll have a novel. So that small little steps in the right direction. And I mean, I need to listen to my own advice because let me tell you, I'm working on book 3, which is oddly enough named Redemption of the Prodigal. So we started with Return, and then Revenge, and now hopefully Redemption. And I've made a joke that it turns out that revenge is a whole lot easier than redemption, and I think that's on a couple different levels.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
like to think that it's because I'm going somewhere deeper and somewhere more exposed and more vulnerable. So I'm going to go with that. But hopefully the labor will be worth it, and you guys will be enjoying Redemption of the Prodigal sometime soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, redemption requires a lot of self kindness and self love. So remember that while you're writing. It was one other thing I wanted to touch on before we part ways for today, and that is this idea at the beginning of the conversation of they, this perception of what will they think? Will they like the book? Will they, not like the book? Will you be embarrassed by the book? In my case, what will they, right? They say, if I say, wow, I'm not practicing law anymore. What am I? How do I describe myself? What will I be? This recognition that these external measures that are just part of our society and our culture, that we start picking these up from the youngest of ages. And you said something earlier also, essentially, that we're all born perfect, right? Perfectly imperfect. And over time, our culture and all the things that we learn are these ideas that we're not perfect, and the only way to get to perfection is to meet these external standards. And so what held me back from my own, transformation for a long time was the what will they say, what will they think, what if this doesn't work, what will I be, what will I call myself, right? and it kept me frozen. And Mabs, here just popped up the fear quote, and that's what kept me locked up for a long time. And so I had lessons to learn. There were things that I needed to learn. I was supposed to be frozen with fear because it wasn't time, to get out and confront these things. But it does require an intentionality and a deliberation to confront them. And so I think writing a book bears your soul in about as raw and kind of honest a way as we can do as humans. So do you have anything for folks out there that are, watching or listening, grappling as we all are with our own fears about, what will they say and what will they think, and how to practically on a daily basis lean into that?
Yeah, two things. Number one is for every fear you have about some anonymous person judging you, there's an unlikely person out there who's going to root for you and who is going to become an ally, whether you know it or not. And I'm not talking about in the real world. Well, maybe that too, but someone you're going to touch who you didn't expect to touch. That's one thing. Secondly, as far as worrying about the judgment of others, which of course we all do from time to time, I would welcome you to whoever let's say your favorite writer is. Think of someone really accomplished who's had countless New York Times bestsellers under their belt, who's critically acclaimed. Go on Goodreads and Amazon and read all of their 1-star reviews. And that'll tell you a little bit about the opinions of other people. And it really ought to gut your fear of stepping forward. And yeah, so think of that. I sometimes I've read 1-star reviews of writers that I really admire, and I become so defensive in my own skin. It's like, how dare they say that about this about Don Winslow or Stephen King? Who are you to say that? So sometimes it takes a little sense of humor, and you got to laugh at it too. It helps to have a sense of humor. That's what I would say.
I think thanks for that, Mike. I'm gonna. As I like to do in a minute, I'm going to ask Mabs for kind of his takeaways and thoughts and what he's hearing. And what I'll say to folks out there is, so a couple of things on this idea that, we're born perfect and then we get, de or reprogrammed, by our culture. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you've ever read the book, Mike, but for folks out there listening, that's essentially, he takes these, I call simply complex concepts of humanity, and that's kind of the heartbeat of the book, or where it starts is getting back to the acceptance that we're born perfect or with everything we need. And what that's really about is trusting ourselves. So I'm a deep believer that if we can quiet all of the noise and trust the voice of our soul, that it is always the best guiding voice. It's the distractions and whether we're hearing it clearly and whether we're in a moment and place where we have the strength to lean into that, RSVP will attend when fear invites. But it's this deep trust in ourselves ultimately that you and I are talking about. And it's an ever a going journey, right? You're struggling with it daily. I am struggling with it daily. But I also have a deep belief that is the guiding light, right? Is that internal voice knows when you can really, really quiet the noise. And sometimes the internal voice will tell you that you don't have enough information yet, right? But whatever the guidance is that you need. And it's really difficult in our noisy society to get there. But I think that's a lot of the essence of what we're talking about, is embracing this journey. And again, I love the way that Don Miguel Ruiz puts it in the Four Agreements, which is a journey back to the fundamental truth that we're born with, which is that we're, perfect, perfectly imperfect. So that's my my thought here. Mabs, what I've been looking forward to this conversation with Mike, and I'm looking forward to you reading the books. What are you hearing here as this young person that Mike was musing on? as an idea, who's actually sitting here across from me and has constructed this awesome studio that I'm in, is running the board for us. Jump in here, Mabs. Any thoughts you have about what we're really talking about and whether we're making any sense here?
I think you can hear me, right, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think you guys have pretty insightful thoughts. Honestly, nowadays a bunch of people want to follow the status quo, and it's hard to step out of the box because due to the fact that there's so many platforms that put you onto a spotlight, even if you do something different from the norm, and now that there's generations of college graduates, and people tell you, oh, you got to go through these steps to be successful, so and so. It's tough to get out of the box, and it gets harder as each generation grows up. And to hear these type of thoughtful talks, it's inspiring, because it's just because as I was going through my college, and I'm still going through my college degree, I went for in-school college for 2 years, and it was a struggle. I didn't feel like I was in the right spot, but I still wanted to learn, and I was like, I don't know if this is the right spot. I feel out of place, but I want to learn, and it was partially the fear coming from me, just the fear of people reacting to me when I was in person schooling, and I got over that, but I think I just, at that point, I was just like maybe too young to try to work over it completely. And right now I'm going through online schooling, and it's been going well, but maybe now that I'm a little bit more mature and maybe can cope over those fears, I could step back into in-person schooling. But it's just insightful to hear about those things. Yeah.
What do you got, Mike?
I would love to think that we helped even a little bit. And I'm very jealous, of course, of Mabs. Wishing, nah, not really, but good for you that you are where you are on your journey. Yeah, you're where you're supposed to be, and it's nice that you reflect on it. But I'm sure you know from your dad. Don't get too hung up on it. It's you're doing just fine, and we're all very proud of you.
Oh yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, no, I know everyone goes through their own journey, and there's no judgment. Yeah.
Mike, it's the beauty of it, of course, is that none of this is planned, right? That my journey led me to a place where I'm blessed every day. I think I work harder than I ever have, and I never feel like I'm working. I have actually arrived at that cliche that too few people get to, which is that if you really truly love what you do, you're never going to feel like you worked a day in your life. And I get up every day and get to speak and interact with people about our own humanity and performance and growth and along the way, Mab's interest in the video side and the production side and the creative side, intersected at a moment where really I think he had more of a vision than I did that that what I do and an Iron Advocate mindset would benefit from more of a 2025 presence, and both this way in terms of YouTube, social media, and also what we're able to produce for clients on the inside in terms of trainings and assets. And so and if tomorrow there's something else out there for Mabs, that's great too, whatever it is that the right thing is for him. But but I think there's a lot to learn, which is, as you said, Mabs is right where he's supposed to be, and by his willingness to just take ownership of the fact that where he was in school at the moment didn't feel like the right place, and he sat with it for a long time. And as you said, he's where he's supposed to be. We don't know where we'll be next. And so for folks out there watching and listening, hopefully from a couple of generations here of voices, my dear brother Michael Caudo, my son Mabs, me, that there are just some simple human takeaways. You're where you're supposed to be. You're okay. Be courageous enough to ask yourself the hard questions and understand you may not have the answers, but keep asking them, peeling it away, and leaning in and moving toward quieting the noise and doing one little thing each day. Right? It might be opening a journal and writing an entry, in your case, Mike, or just sitting and saying, "Man, I actually think I'm more author than I am writer today," and maybe uttering it to somebody, or more author than I am lawyer. Maybe uttering it, maybe not. So to folks out there, I think it's really, it's just about a shift in your way of being. It's not necessarily about an action step that you take. It's a shift in your way of being. So thanks so much for being here. I'm going to leave it to you, Mike, to land the plane for us with any thoughts that you have. And obviously I encourage folks, like I do anybody that I end up talking books with, to pick up Revenge of the Prodigal, Return of the Prodigal, and get them read before Redemption comes out. So Mike, I'm going to kick it to you to land the plane for us, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, maybe just a closing thought. I probably used this word during this interview, and I think you did too, that, on a day-to-day basis, we try to pull off these little things, I said, little thefts, little acts of rebellion, stealing back the beauty from life. And we kind of highlighted the fact that it's a daily struggle. I think that came out, that it's not something that you ever perfect. But there's another way of looking at it too. It's a daily struggle, but it's fun too, and it should be joyful. And being able to laugh at yourself when you stumble and dust yourself off, that's part of the joy too. So it's doesn't all have to be drudgery.
Yeah.
If it's not fun for you, I mean, life is for living, and do what you love, whether it's writing or painting, and there's beauty in other in other pursuits too. We talking about law and engineering. I mean, people can find a passion within those constraints as well. Yeah, the whole world doesn't have to quit their job and start painting watercolors. So yeah, find that beauty in your life. Grab a hold of it with both hands, whatever that means to you. That's how
it,
I'm,
man.
That's how
that's it.
Landing a plane.
That's it. Listen, this doesn't get more fun than this, so hopefully people pick that up. And yes to everything you said, man. So let's do this again soon. Barely scratched the surface. It was a blast, man. And thanks for coming on, and thanks for putting your heart and soul onto paper and letting folks travel the journey with you through those books. And we'll have you back for some more soon, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you, Mabs, for all your hard work.
Appreciate you coming, and it was interesting to meet you and hear all the good stories. Yeah, thank you.
All right, man.
All right.
Bye.
Take us out of here. Take us out of here, Mabs.